in the top right-hand side to start off day number 1 of the Korean Close Qualifier. I'm going with the proxy opener. Our blue Terran player is TY, and I gotta say, he absolutely bopped stats in the open qualifier that we casted the other day. He actually had a really epic series against Tasia that I have bookmarked to cast for the YouTube channel. And then he came up against stats, and everyone was like, oh, this is going to be a good one, qualifying match. And 25 minutes later, we were like, well, I just wish we'd seen more of stats, you know? I wish we'd watched him earlier when you didn't just get bopped by TY. So he didn't exactly stats have the best of days when he got to him playing against TY, but he looked pretty good until then. So yeah, TY just looked real good the other day in TvP. It was a mixture of aggressive SCV attacks, quirky little cute micro damage done in the early game, and just kind of solid mechanics and, micro through to the mid game, etc. None of them went super long, but again, that's because he created opportunities where he got very far ahead very early in the games anyways, and you guys know what it's like when you've got Korean gameplay. If these guys get themselves a lead, the one strength that Koreans have is that they can absolutely say, oh, I've got a lead here, which means I can kill him in a minute or two, or I can kill him there, or I can do this to kill him. And that really feels like a very different way of thinking versus the Europeans, who really say, oh, I've got a lead, better get an extra base, so get my macro sorted for the next couple minutes of the game. The Koreans really are that little bit better at just coming in and killing you off. So as this SCV scouts around it, we'll see Pylon on the low ground, and the Reaper's about to pop out. So what's interesting here is this is obviously Cybercore, before the Nexus, etc. The probe saw there was a no barracks at home, which means that you are a little bit afraid of the Reaper proxy. And so because of that, TY will be able to play for a delay on this Nexus. Even building a bunker off to the side might be able to just delay that Nexus for a very long time. It's very frustrating, that bunker, because you can't really get rid of it without a shield battery or so, because a couple of, Reaper and a couple of Marines inside of it does a great job, but that Reaper took a lot of damage, needed to get away there, and it does. And the first Marine now in the bunker. I mean, this Nexus is going to take damage from the moment it starts building, so it's never really going to recover properly. And that's very interesting to keep in mind as well, as our probe from Trap will continue to move around. Just having a bit of a wonder here as it patrols. Now we do just see a couple of Marines working their way through this Nexus. Like I said, this is very, very frustrating for Trap, having to try and break out of this already. I mean, there's the shield battery coming down. It's an essential addition, because if you don't get the shield battery, you actually just can't keep the Stalkers up. And the Stalkers do have to dive deep on the bunker, because they need to get rid of that SCV. All of this so far has actually been for nothing at all, because he actually has to turn around. He will turn around and get the Reaper. He will get the Reaper at least. But he just put a bunch of damage onto the bunker. It all just got repaired off. And so far, Trap is not doing a very good job of breaking this down. Now, here we go again. The Zealot's going to probably be the biggest problem here. As you see, these Stalkers will very much so commit to chasing down that SCV. And yes, this bunker will fall. As you see these Marines popping out, they're going to try and see if they can get away, perhaps. As we do just see the couple of Marines continue to escape out up the left-hand side. So those Marines, they'll escape. I say they escape out, but honestly, I mean, the Stalkers, obviously, they're faster than them, and they will kill them. Just trying to pull them away to the side, so it takes a little bit longer to go into a counterattack, or the Cyclone to show up. And the Cyclone picks off the first Stalker already. And that's a lock on to Stalker number 2, which is towards the shield battery, so it's okay for the moment. Cyclone now back toward the center. Alrighty, so as these couple of Stalkers continue to dish out some hurt, you see this barracks taking a little bit more damage, and just going to be having a couple of Cyclones going to be able to grab another kill as well. It's a good scan in the early stages there to actually make that happen, so good job, well done. Again, just in general, just good play, I would say, from just good play from the couple of Cyclones and TY in general. Up until this point, he's been doing great, and he's been doing exactly what you want to see him doing, right? Really just putting himself out there and, dishing out some hurt. Job well done. And TY now pulls back towards the upper right-hand side. An SCV hanging around there, as we do have the couple of Cyclones going to lock on again. This time the Stalker obviously backed away. The Cyclone's getting a little bit more hurty, and the Warp Prism showing up makes it a little bit of a tougher defense. What is there actually to defend a bunch of Stalkers and a Warp Prism? Well, currently on the map, it's only these two Cyclones. So the Orbital Command has to come back into the main. So TY can't actually expand yet. I mean, again, there's the lock-on, but for what? This Warp Prism will just load you up, and now you've already lost a supply depot. This tank is in a little bit of trouble. Raven's going to have to drop an auto turret to help. The tank goes low, but the Stalkers would have had to commit through the auto turret to actually get it. So they decide to back away instead. Now the tank fire is starting to get there. One of the Cyclones goes down, the other goes low, but TY is under a lot of pressure here. And Trap is now up on that expansion, right? So Trap is mining comfortably. He's got his income rolling, and he's putting on so much pressure that TY is kind of stuck in his main base. So despite the damage done here by TY, Trap has retained enough units to make this a scary push, and now, well, we actually have some Stalkers still left at the front, but there's a warband of Zealots in the main, and this is going to be undefended because these units have to pull back from the natural, so it takes just a couple of extra moments to get here. Now there's units obviously here to shut this down. You can trade out. Warp Prism going to be able to save the day as it lifts up those few Stalkers. Obviously, I don't think you ever expect to get the Zealots out of there. As these Stalkers actually going to go for a Siege Tank kill, and they... Oh, the depot lowers. Loses one of the Stalkers. The other just escapes alive. That's kind of a must-save from TY. You're already at a point where you're taking quite a lot of damage. You can't really afford to take, lose an extra Siege Tank or anything here. You really need that for the future of this game, so... It's a really nice save, especially because of how Trap's playing, right? Trap is positioned to the top, and he was, pushing the natural as well. So you kind of want a tank that covers A, the main base, and B, the natural. So if you go down to just one tank, it immediately leaves an opening that's weaker, and maybe this attack can continue then from Trap. As it stands, it's obviously now being dealt with. Trap has to somewhat go back home. Yes, you can always keep the Warp Prism on the map, right? But in terms of Stalkers, they have to kind of head back a little bit more and play a bit more carefully. Behind all of this, Trap is just going very nicely so far, able to go in towards the third Nexus already. So third Nexus on the way up. We're going to be seeing the Colossus Chrono boosting out. Those few Stalkers of Trap just hanging around to the upper right-hand side. So again, just a few Stalkers gathered up. The scan dropping down. Raven over towards the upper right. A bit of an army going to start pushing out then. So this is why TY was also very important to keep that extra tank alive. Anything you can get to go pushing across. Even here, you can leave a tank behind defensively in the main. That's where that Warp Prism is likely to hit, as the Raven is ahead of the rest of the army. But for the moment, it's okay. That Raven is so important. You're going to want to Interference Matrix that Colossus. If he commits to the fight, he'd have probably 2 Interference Matrix before it broke out. Looks like the fight's not going to be committed to, though. Instead, the Warp Prism going to come back over. A few Adepts going to drop down. And the Marines and Marauder going to go after the Warp Prism here. So Warp Prism taking quite a lot of damage. It's going to get chased up to the top side of the map. So away it goes, chased up to the top as our Marines going to grab a couple more Adepts. Trap just coming into the center here. Couple Colossus Stalkers. All gathered up. Bio and the Raven on the top side as well. And the charge upgrade about halfway done. So again, so far so good. Just waiting for kind of Trap to make a move, because TY's kind of made his move across to try and see if he could do much, and he couldn't. It's really Trap's turn to kind of move across the map. He's hitting that number of Colossus that's very valuable. You'll see this Raven does drop the Matrixes down. That's very important here. And a Bio getting around the side can target the Colossus. Oh, I can't believe they're going to get away. That's actually incredible. But this is still a fight without charge, so it's not the fight that Trap really wants. And while it was maybe his time to push out, it wasn't his time to get jumped on unexpectedly, because this is obviously turned into a disaster now. Uses one Colossus, he's going to start shooting again. The next Colossus is low, by the way. And we're going to see these couple Stalkers trying to get the Raven. Now, this is very scary, because just that Colossus being so low, it almost means that we're only on one Colossus of kind of defense here, because that one's going to go down so quickly anyways. Especially with the tanks covering this area, they're going to stop any Colossus getting close to defending this third base. You can see Trap's going to go out into the center. He is going to grab a couple of the reinforcing units. You see a little bit of bio here is going to go. Oh, the Warp Prism will save it for the moment. As the Zealots warp in as well. Here we go. Bio fighting in the center. Now the Zealots do have charge. They're going to move that much faster. Let's see if it's going to work out as they come in from the left and the right. And Trap is looking to make the breakout here. Tanks are not firing on the Colossus. Well, the ones they are already higher HP, so they are surviving. But a couple of Vikings showing up. The Warp Prism is going to have to micro retard out here as Trap's going to try to save this. Another save on the Colossus, but now one of them goes down. Make that 2, and the Warp Prism taking some hits as well. Now the third Colossus goes down. So TY gets all 3 of those units, which he really needs to pick up on here. If he doesn't get those Colossus kills, he's in so much trouble continuing in the game. As it stands, now he can maybe keep on fighting. This is moving his main base out towards the third. He decides he cannot. I mean, he's moving his main base out towards the third, you know, etc., etc. I think he just knows he's not actually won the game. But that said, let's go into game 2 and let's see what happens, as we do have in the bottom right-hand side. Able to take the first game of this. Our Red Protoss player is Trap from Jinae Green Wings, one of the 4 players they did extend their contracts of. Obviously, we just got the news that Kieran Creator left Jinae. I'll talk more about that in a second. Let's obviously just quickly introduce TY, our Blue Terran player, who's also in a weird team predicament right now because he's teamless after Splice just completely rebranded and shut down. So, TY is pretty much guaranteed to go to a team called Triumphant Song Gaming, the same team as Solar, to play in the China Team Championship in 2020. It's pretty much a done deal. Like, this has been announced a long time ago. We're just, you know, it's basically like a Chinese rumor, but these Chinese rumors have like a 95% success rate of being correct. So, we've known about this for a long time. So TY is not really teamless. On the bottom right side, Trap, we mentioned he got extended by Jinae. I actually think it's a good thing that this happened, that Kieran Creator didn't get picked back up by Jinae. It's not that Jinae weren't happy to pay Kieran Creator, it's just other Chinese teams were actually happy to pay more for Kieran Creator. So when one, you know, it means that Kieran Creator are probably getting a much better deal now off of Jinae than they were on Jinae. Kira already joined a team. I imagine there's going to be space for Creator as well, because there wasn't a single player last year, or this year, in Korea that was teamless, because every single one of them got snapped up to play in the China Team Championship. And that China Team Championship is already confirmed for 2020. And also on top of that, the Kung Fu Cup Cups, if you guys remember that, they kind of died off because of the China Team Championship. Now they were kind of replaced by it. They're back starting this Thursday. So actually, this Thursday, $400 Cup Korean server. All the top Koreans are signed up. It's going to be awesome. Make sure you tune in right here on WardiTV. As we do see the probe out in the center. This was a proxied barracks. We saw the SCV heading across early, but the difference here is the 2 barracks rather than the 1 barracks. So it's not a Reaper, it's actually just going to be proxy marauders. He's also made the Marines at home to try and get something going. Now, Trap should know something a little bit funky is up, right? He was scouring, there's not been an SCV there, there's not a command center. And a couple of Marines will now make their way across the map on Ephemeron, looking to join up with those Marauders, and no shield battery on the low ground. This is going to be troubling. The Robo facility isn't done yet. The Stalker's obviously going to have a lot of trouble when it comes to dealing with Marauders, especially when it gets slowed by concussive shells. Then even the Marines are going to stay in range, and it's going to go down so quickly. He's actually checking out to the left-hand side, but he is going to be out of position, and that Stalker is so dead, I can't even say it enough. As we do see, first probes will now begin to drop here. So a couple of probes already going down. I mean, that's early, easy damage for TY as Trap. Well, his Stalker, what do you want to do with that? You're going to bring him back in. He's going to try and delay the bunker on the low ground with it. But actually, TY is just going to try and get a bunker up in the main base. Has to pull back a little bit, though. Trap's just going to type GG. Give TY game 1 of this best of 5. There you go. Nice play by TY, and Trap just caught in the bottom right-hand side. Our Blue Terran player from Splice, it is TY. Taking on the Red Protoss on the top left-hand side, Trap, as we get ready to jump into game 3 of this series. TY's proxy there, deadly, dangerous. Trap just did not know enough about what it was. And in that scenario, you're out of position with your first Stalker, you have no shield battery on the low ground, and TY just walks straight in there, and Trap's just like, Trap just doesn't even bother. He just knows. As he's starting to lose those probes, he's not actually killing any of the units. He just knows he's never going to clean this up with anywhere near the probe count that he needs. You know, the bunkers are going to go up, and at that point, you don't ever break out of it. So he just got himself out of there and tried to stay a little bit, kind of, just put that game behind you already. As we go into game number 3 here now on Simulacrum. So Simulacrum is our third map of the series, and honestly, tough to say which way this is going to go. Remind you, this is a double elimination bracket, so if you drop down to the lower bracket here already, it's not the end of the world, but the loser of this series will have to play either Rogue or Dark. And the winner of this series will also have to play either Rogue or Dark. That's our second series of the day, that's ZVZ coming up. We actually have 5 best of 5s today, so we have Trap versus TY, Rogue versus Dark, Maru versus Armani, and then Sue versus Zest, and it's going to be whoever wins or loses the Sue match. Wherever Sue goes, we basically do his 5th best of 5, because tomorrow he's traveling to Nation Wars, or I think it's tomorrow he's traveling to Nation Wars, and then he has to play the rest of his matches from Paris, most likely. Here's the current situation, as we do just have the Command Center dropping down into the natural expansion in the Reaper from TY, heading on up to the upper right-hand side of the map. So, Reaper heading up the right, and just starting to scout around for the first game of the series. We actually have TY with his, barracks all in his base back at home. So, that's looking good. As a factory, second racks will start up now as well. We do just have this first probe already chrono boosting out of the Nexus here over on the natural expansion. Adept setting up on the ramp, and so you do see the probe continuing down the right hand side and continuing over towards the natural. Reaper just patrolling, and that's going to be able to jump on this probe right away, which is, obviously committed to try and pick up as much info as possible. Sees absolutely nothing though. Good positioning from the Reaper, keeping that at home to be able to make this happen. And, now going to head back across the map and try and get into that main base, try and identify that this is a Twilight Council, and most likely a Blink opening. Currently just a sentry at the front. There is an area here you can jump up in, but by the time it's a double jump, it means the Adept actually does get the couple shots off, and the Reaper will be going down before it gets the Scout, I believe, so that's pretty close over there as this Reaper goes down the left-hand side. We do see both of these gateways from Trap. They're setting up at the front, so getting those started already. As we do just have the Reaper continuing down to the bottom side here. Hallucinated Phoenix flying around a little bit as well. Blink coming up, Robo Facility dropping down. And the Siege Tank, Marauder Marines, all of this continuing out as well. So, continuing to build this up as our Hallucinated Phoenix shot down here by Marines. And TY now coming out the front into the natural. So far so good, and obviously TY in a more regular game. It'll be interesting to see kind of what plays from this, because in the first game, okay, he kind of, got a bit more standard, but obviously he fell behind early. After having a good start, the counterattack then did a lot. So let's see what happens now. They're both set in similar positions. He's going to push aggressively with the Marine Tank Force. Combat shields on the way up. The only time you ever invest into combat shields first is when you want to push. It finishes faster. It doesn't require medevacs to actually heal those Marines back up. So this is 100% an attack from TY. Probably 3 or 4 SCVs pulled with it. And looking to bring it across the map. Try and set up some bunkers in a tank position. At the very least, you're looking to try and deny a third base here. Or trade out some units. Either way, or maybe force defenses as well. Let's see, because it's going to hit at a time where Blink will be done. But you're taking up into Robo Bay, Forge. And if you can slow down that Robo Bay and Forge tech a little bit, well, especially the Robo Bay, right? If you can try and slow down Colossus production, that's amazing. As you see this Adept getting in here, you're going to see delayed starport, and that should really only mean one thing, especially if that barracks already upgraded. I think there's going to be some good identification here from Trap, realizing a bit what's going on. Now, as the Marauders get here with the tank, the Stalkers are going to struggle to do a lot with this. Now, they might be able to try and get a target down a couple of units. You can just see the damage output is good from the Bio Army. So the Stalkers are pushed back pretty quickly, and that's important because you don't want them to come in, pick off a Marauder, get out, come in, Marauder 2, get out. The fact that he nearly only lost one Marauder, really good from TY, as now the Stalkers are trying to intercept reinforcements, all those couple of SCVs, and they will get the SCVs, but the Stalkers are now low ground, trying to push up the high ground here. He will lose a siege tank though. It costs quite a few Stalkers. Can this reinforced Marine target fire a low health Stalker? It cannot. And the one tank now is going to unsiege and reposition a bit further to the left, as TY is going for that Nexus. So will he be able to get this? He's just going to keep the tank unsieged for a moment. Now the Bio Unit's going to turn around. Target's down. The sentry straight away, trying to defend his siege tank here, and he might just about be able to do that. He's going to turn and get the Immortal as well. On the bottom side, the Stalker's not even fighting, so the tank will survive. So the tank survives this, and Obviously, that was a decision made right then by Trap as to whether he was going to commit to this fight or if he was going to kill the Nexus. He decided to fight it, and I don't think you can disagree because he's been able to do so much, and he's still putting damage out on the Nexus. I think he's just going to stir step and try and keep this alive. Obviously, the Marauder especially there, able to do a bit more. He Chrono Boost, which will give it just a bit more shield regeneration. And he is going to save the Nexus, if only just. There's a couple more units coming up, and they're going to try and go from the bottom side here. The only problem with that is that these units are actually here. I feel like most of the time Trap probably gets this Nexus pushing in like this. Sorry, TY probably gets this Nexus, but this time Trap was just positioned perfectly, right? If Trap was like here, and these units come around here and up here, that Nexus probably goes down. It only had like 80 to 100 health overall at the time that tank arrived. As we do just see the Bio Army continuing to gather up. Colossus on the way, extended thermal lance, charge upgrade coming down. So all of that setting up is our +1 attack upgrade on the engineering bay. Stim pack about halfway done as well. All looking good. Charge upgrade about halfway done. As you can see, our +1 attack on the way on the engineering base, stim pack on the way up, and a couple of extra Vikings in production. So what this is going to, set up for now, obviously the third base survives, the Colossus coming out and gathering on that third base as well. So we're getting into that tech unit choice from Trap. But TY is already on top of it, building Vikings. He's got his 5 racks set up, he's got his 3 bases mining. TY is very comfortable here. You can see the 63 to 57 worker difference. That's a big advantage for TY. He's got the economy lead here, so TY is actually in a very good position when it comes to mining. And in general, should be able to take some good fights from this in a couple of minutes, once he's got his Vikings set up to deal with Colossus, etc. It's been a successful opening from TY. He's done a lot of damage. He stopped mining on that third base for a long time. I think that's important. It wasn't just like he went over and boom, they had a fight and it was done. No, he really extended the amount of time you couldn't build probes or mine from this third. And that's exactly what you want to do. Biggest issue is he did end up losing his army, and if he doesn't defend this now, he's obviously in trouble. I feel like this may be the best time to attack from Trap, just before TY really gets too much more out of this. You can see the Vikings, good control, pulling back over to the side. Wants to make sure he tries to minimize the Stalker connections from those, because the Bio has pulled back quite heavily so far. We'll get the Archon. The War Prism's going to go down, so it takes away a lot of the micro, but the Vikings have not been able to kill those Colossus yet. Some extra Zealots from the left-hand side. SCVs have already been pulled in. The reinforcing Marauders, tank fire targeting down the Colossus as well. And this will be a defense from TY, albeit with 10 workers lost. That still only brings him down to equal in the worker count. And obviously, if you're equal in the worker count, you're in a position now where you're still ahead with the mules, etc. And you've got upgrade lead, +1 is done, those upgrades coming out from Trap. We actually talked about him delaying the Forge, and the Forge actually in the end got cancelled. So, yeah, like I said, that felt like one of the better timings for Trap to attack, especially because he's no upgrades. He's not going anywhere in this game as time passes by. And it really was just before the kind of economy bonus kicked in from TY. It was just still too good of a defense. Too many tanks, layered too deeply. These couple of depots here definitely helped. And just cute micro, right? Vikings got as much damage as they could do. Shut down the Warp Prism, so immediately stopped reinforcements. And then the tanks for target firing down the Colossus as well. It was just well played by TY. It's a good defense, and now he puts himself in a great position here in this game number 3 with our army continuing across to the right. So TY was actually attacking his own depots there for a moment. I don't think that will affect him too much in the fight. Biggest issue is those Colossus. Problem is there's nothing to protect the Colossus for too long, and tank fire on them is still pushing them back. TY has the army advantage. It's just a case of getting a couple of reinforcements out here. It's the Colossus that are the biggest issue. And, one of them is literally one tank shot away from being taken down already. So the problem, Trap just can't push in, because if he pushes in, he loses the Colossus, and then his army isn't actually very good. As we're going to see this Bioforce sieging up, getting ready to defend it again. A few Zealots already out to the top side. You see more Zealots and the Archon morphing in on the left. Here you go, those Stalkers blinking down on the bottom side. SCVs continuing to go down. A couple of Vikings are picking their way through the Colossus here, so able to get quite a lot done. Actually, Bio jumps on the Zealots up top. SCVs do have to pull again. 16 workers down. I mean, we're getting to the point where maybe enough economic damage has been done by Trap to put TY into a position where he could struggle. But we're still only 10 workers behind for TY. 10 workers is very manageable. If we look at the income in this game, you can actually see it right here, right? TY, yeah, there's been spikes of Trap having the advantage when TY's had to pull SCVs, but in general, TY's had a good economy himself, and that means he's completely fine here on the work account that he has. So now as Storm and +1 armor comes up from Trap, that's almost him saying, well, I'm doing enough to kind of start teching at least. I'm doing enough to give myself other options in the game instead of just going again and again. As we do have the Archon's Stalkers coming forwards. A few bio units gathering up together as well. Well, Stalker's going down. There's a High Templar drops and a bit of bio getting picked away at. Some good damage done as the Storms ignites, but again, can he break this position as Trap? Probably not. It is starting to look better for Trap, right? I've kind of been a big believer in TY defending, but it is starting to get to that point where maybe Trap has just got a bit too much of an army. I mean, this time we're talking about 5 Archons. Make that 6. There's still 1 Storm available, and there's still a couple of those Colossus. As time goes by, these tanks just become less effective because they just get overrun more easily. Oh no, TY's on siege. It's going to let Trap come up this very narrow ramp, which obviously should never really be allowed to happen. Defensively, that's a disaster for TY. Let's see how it goes. The tanks are just going to get picked apart so quickly. Those Archons have a fantastic time here, and TY will type out GG. I can't believe it. TY actually, especially because Trap pushed up. As we kick this off in at the bottom left-hand side with our red Terran player, it is TY. Taking on the blue Protoss player in the upper right, it is Trap. Up 2-1 in this. So away we go. Trap leading the series. And we look to see what might happen as SCV production coming up over on the main base. Getting that ready to go. SCV production continuing. We do just see again probe coming now, gateway dropping down. So a lot of build up here over the next couple moments. And you just see this probe heading down to the bottom left, so having a look to see what's going on. Let's see if we can fight the probe as it just get turned back around and just out onto the map again. Obviously just waiting for this game to really get going, looking for some choices. In terms of tech, it's pretty standard from TY again, right? He is going to go Marines rather than a Reaper, which means his factory can come down a bit faster, so maybe he has some aggressive intentions in that regard. I'll find that out in a moment or two. So factory dropping down. And we are going to be seeing the Cybernetics core. That's going to be completing in a few moments' time as well, so Nexus on its way up, about halfway down. We do just see the CC. Sending on up, building up. Factory coming through, getting ready to go. Tile Council will build in the main, and that's obviously going to give you the first tech choice from Trap. So he's going to go back towards that Blink Stalker opening. We saw, I mean, it worked out in Simulacrum, kind of. It gave him enough to eventually push back the attack, but it did get kind of dicey. I really feel like he was kind of passive with the Stalkers initially, though. Usually those Blink Stalkers are more out on the map. They were kind of in the middle, but usually they get even further forwards. I guess we'll see in a moment or two as we do have our Adept continuing down to the lower left. We've got a planetary, an orbital command over here morphing in, and a couple of Hellions going to pop out. So reactors out 2 Hellions, Starport going to come up. Looks like the Starport's going to get the tech lab here. TY does like to mix in the Cloak Banshees now and again. And while Ravens are quite popular in TvP, I feel like this is more, it feels more like a Cloak Banshee play than anything else. Just the setup that he's got. It's just very early in the game to commit to the Raven, right? Because usually you get the Raven after you do a Widowmine drop or something along those lines, right? The Raven is not ever really the first unit out of the starport because you want to create some pressure before then. And so when you go straight to that tech lab on the starport, it really is, this early in the game, just a sign that it's probably going to be Cloak Banshees, and we're going to be able to go in towards some harassment here. Now this comes down to how well Trap can defend as well. He has at least got the robo facility going, so he's going to get detection available. I mean, that's step number one, having detection available. If you've got a robo facility, you can get observers, you can get those out on the map, you can see the Banshees. Step 2 is having the observers in position and having the units you need in position to defend against this as well. As we do have the couple of Marines. They are wandering around over on the left side. Hellions moving around in the center. Robo facility going to finish up, and Blink going to be finishing very soon as well. Over the next couple of moments, Banshee on the way up, Tank about to finish as well. This Banshee's got some real potential because the first one in the main base, there's no shield batteries either, so you're pretty much free to go where you want, even with just one Banshee. And that's part of the amazing part of this. You come straight in. I mean, where are the observers? There's one observer on the map. It's way down in the natural, so this is at least... Depends on how he controls. Decides to back away, right? He probably could have chased and lost the Banshee sooner. Well, lost the Banshee at all. And then he would have maybe got like 6 to 7 probes, but now he keeps the Banshee alive, and that keeps it out as a threat for later on in this game. Good first Banshee from TY. Banshee number 2 is making its way to the right, so it looks like that will make a way towards the natural. So Banshee coming in. Banshee out into the center here as didn't really pick up too much. Marine tank up the left-hand side. Hellion and a 1-4 as with the Stalker is going to pick it off. So Hellion does go down. Marines, 2 tanks, Banshee all gathering up. We're just going to be seeing the Banshee pushed away over to the left-hand side. Tanks do siege, and the Stalkers do get away. So attack here from TY is deflected. His charge will begin. TY is going to continue up into more factories, so he's going to play mech. As we have extra gases on the natural, and his engineering bay at the front. Tanks are going to come back, siege up. Marines gathering up, and a couple of Banshees as well up in the skies. So all of this getting ready to go. Defensively looks great as he goes into this mech style. I mean, these Stalkers shouldn't really be able to break this. The only way the Stalkers might do damage is because the tanks aren't actually all together in range just yet. I think Trap is starting to realize what is going on in this, so getting a little bit of an idea of what's going on. Hyperflight Rotor is about to finish, so those Banshees are going to be mobile. They're going to be very aggressive on the map. And so far, defensively, I think TY is just fine over here as well. As this Wall Prism will lift up a few of the Zealots and take those down to the bottom side. Charge upgrade about halfway done. As the Temple Archives will start up in the natural expansion. So Temple Archives get started. A Stargate on the way on the natural as well. The Stargate, I mean, air toss against mech is kind of one of the reasons I think mech really sucks in TvP. Because every time I always feel like the most successful times I see kind of Protoss against mech working, and why we see mech kind of really struggle, is if you identify mech early enough, you can just go into like carriers very early, and there's very little kind of good response to that against mech, because it's very rare you get enough units out to punish it as you're going up to carriers, and then when the carriers get out, well then you have to fight against carriers. That is difficult once carriers are out. I know a lot of people like to believe carriers aren't great and stuff, but you know, you get enough of them up and they are going to kill things. So let's see what Trap specifically does, because it's just one Stargate. He'll start a Phoenix. Okay, so he's not going to go into kind of straight up Sky Toss or anything. He's going to play an Immortal Archon Ground Army, and he's going to add some Phoenix in. Is he just going to try and get the Phoenix up as a response to the Banshees, I suppose, is kind of the idea, right? Because there's no world in which you make Phoenix because you're like, oh, he's making a lot of tanks, I'll just lift some of them up, right? Which is basically the only other thing the Phoenix could do in this. So, you know, obviously, yes, if the Phoenix kill off the Banshees and then they still have some lifts available, they can do that, but that's not going to be worth investing into the Phoenix just because of that. So, just going to get the Phoenix up to try to deflect the Banshees and try and keep this as safe as possible. Those Banshees are undetected as they'll continue across. I like this one that turns back around. Just going to try and find some more damage here or there. There is shield battery on the natural, but there's other bases to check out, of course. TY, by the way, 80 SCVs is just absolutely killing it in the work account. Going into a 4th base as well. I mean, that's crazy. Up 12 workers here, so that's maybe the one thing that TY will have in his favor in this game, massively so. Income lead, especially when you're playing something like mech. If you can build up much more mech than your opponent, it's going to be really tough, because mech's already a very efficient composition, and while it maybe isn't ideal in TvP, it can absolutely become much better, obviously, then if, you know, while it's not ideal, if you just have that much more of it. So, the 80 work count, and that's allowed him to get so many upgrades too. Magfield Accelerated, Infernal Pre-Ignited, Drilling Claws. You know, all of these mech units are getting upgraded, including the double armory upgrades. So, everything from TY being upgraded in every way it can. One of the big things we saw about mech is the Drilling Claws coming up. One of the big things we saw that made mech a bit more viable again versus Brawlers is people realizing they can actually go pretty heavy Widowmine compositions. So you kind of get a tank backline, you get kind of a Hellion Cyclone kind of front force as well from ability. You can then start kind of bleeding in a few Widowmines, and it makes it very difficult because then it completely changes how you want to try and engage this army. And you can just make it a little bit of extra splash damage as, you know, units approach. Can just be the difference between Zealots being successful and Zealots just looking absolutely terrible. And even if Stalkers like try and blink into the tanks, right, then the Widowmines blow them all up. So it takes away some of the options here. Against the Pros that does get Storm up against the mech, though, they're not going to be as great because they're going to be just in the mix, and Storm does kill those Widowmines pretty quickly, and the Widowmines aren't exactly the tankiest of units. As we do have Stalker and Mortal Force in the center. TY will press forwards on the top, pick off a Stalker to begin, and Phoenix actually coming in to chase down some of the Banshees here. Hellion Cyclone Force still a bit of back and forth. A couple of SCVs go down as Zods go charging into the 3rd base right now. See Shanks going down all over the place. The Marines continue to pick their way through this, so all of those Zealots will drop. So all of these Zealots will die off right now, as you do see again. Phoenix trying to press forward. Cyclone's going to lock on. Phoenix will be killed. Stalker Immortal still down into the center. This army around the top side now going to make a push in towards this pylon and this base. At the same time, the Trap's on the bottom side, so it's a very weird position here where obviously TY is threatening the 4th base. Trap is ready to kind of dive on a base as well, though. See, as these Zealots start charging in, they are again absolutely part of the problem in this. The Phoenix are going down. Can TY keep enough up? I think with the Planetary Fortress, this should be pretty easy overhold in the initial army, but then the rest of the army starts to show up. The Liberators didn't get sieged. Let's see. I mean, these Stalkers have to be so careful. Is there any detection here? The scans, there is observers around. He'll get a high tempo, he'll get an Immortal with the Banshees. Now Trap puts himself between the bases on the watchtower. His role, his turn to make a move here, but he has to make something happen sooner rather than later, because he has not got a War Prism, so he's not reinforcing this army. So you've got to be a bit careful as Trap pressing in. TY might be in some trouble trying to repair up that Planetary Fortress. Not working out just yet. He will lose the 4th base, and these few Cyclones will just try and kite away and kill off whatever they can just to wrap this up. I mean, try and get some value out of all of this. On the other side of the map, a couple of Widowmines. One of them burrows up, and the Stalker's just waiting to blink away there. Drilling Claws means you do need detection to kill it off, though. New command center actually survives, so you will be able to replace a base here pretty quick. Throughout all of this, TY still has an army lead. And that army is just... the problem was he was between, you know, these two armies were like split here and reinforcements over here. And Trap just being in the center of that really stopped TY getting himself any sort of kind of regathering. And then, especially as mech, you don't really want to be the one engaging from 2 angles. You kind of want to be the one that's just got, you know, your army set up and then your opponent attacks into it. Especially, you know, obviously tanks work well as that, but also cyclones too, because cyclones, if they're going to kite, want to go one way, and they don't want to run into an army. And obviously then when you come in from two angles, it's so difficult to kite cyclones back, because you're trying to look in two different places. It just gets so tough, as we do see cyclones walking on. The Stalker Immortal Archon Force pulling back a little bit as much more Zealots will warp in, and they are going to start heading their way towards this natural expansion as we do see stage tanks in some trouble right away. Other tanks will siege, and those Stalkers do go down. Now this other army is going to come back along. There's going to be an Observer picked off. Ten probes going down as you see the Banshees move into the natural. 11 workers picked off here. This Nexus going into this top side of the map. I mean, that's 5 bases from Trap that he can mine from, but again, losing some workers. Doesn't exactly have the craziest of economies, and while TY obviously was a little bit scary over here, he has absolutely stabilized from it. He just had to regroup, retake a base elsewhere, and again, it really is just about getting your units all gathered up together. And in a way, it's kind of weird, but I kind of like this base more for TY playing mech than I like it, you know, like the base on the left side. Because what it allows him to do is now you can't really get into a position between these bases as the Protoss. Over here, you can come down here and then up there. Well, you know, exactly what Trap did. Threaten an attack over here, position over here, boom, you've split them armies up. But over here, that doesn't really happen. The most you can maybe get is like, okay, you get to the high ground here as Trap, and that's frustrating. But low ground Liberators and tanks will actually be very good at defending that. If you were playing Bio, this might be a much tougher base to hold if the Protoss player gets over here. And that might be very frustrating, but in this scenario, not really the case, as we do see Liberators coming in, picking up a few drones probes already, and now these Banshees are back as well. 19 workers killed, no detection here, and so the Banshees picked up a Stalker or two, as there is the Observer out to this right-hand side. But this has given TY the chance to move on to the map, and it's exactly what he's doing, looking to put some pressure on as he attacks up to the top side. You're going to have a good set of Cyclones, a set of Liberators sieging up. The Cyclones will lead the charge in as well. You can already see Traps trying to come in from the back, but that's going to be a lot of Liberators set up against it. Carrier production has started. It's just not ready yet, as that's a brand new War Prism going down. High Templars inside. That's a huge pick-off by TY. And Trap just lost one of his key splash damage, parts of the splash damage composition of this army to try and take this down. The Banshees are back again, and well, there is just not units really around. There's a couple Stalkers over here. Probes transferring. There's cannons, though. TY doesn't see it as he actually loses out on the Banshees, unfortunately. They could have sat over here and picked off a bunch of probes. As it stands, these couple of units might do that anyways. But actually, Trap catches TY out in the center. A little bit unsieged here at the moment. These couple of Liberators on their own were not going to save the day. Obviously, TY just had a lot of units up to this top side. And that just became a little bit messy there as Trap makes a catch. In the end, TY is salvaging it and getting some damage done, at least picking off as many units as possible. He did kill 10 more probes. So Trap now down to 48 workers, a 15 worker deficit for him. Means he's trailing pretty hard. First 2 carriers are up, but it's only 2. 2 carriers can absolutely be taken down by a handful of Thors and maybe a couple Cyclones. So it's not kind of super dangerous air toss, sky toss territory just yet. 4 more Liberators building at a time, and that's going to be very important. We saw the value of those Liberators in terms of actually being able to scare this Protoss army away and to keep it from getting into the stronger positions. Trap blinking over to the left to check for a 4th base there, but it never was re-established. This CC is still just flying around. TY decides to bring it back towards space, now probably morph into an orbital. Don't know where this Thor is off to. I think it was coming out here to try and reinforce over to the front, so it's a nice catch from Trap as he does get this base mining again. But this is still only 4 bases from Trap against a 5 base Terran player playing mech with extra CCs all over the place as well. It's looking very, very good here for TY, I think. 2 more robot facilities will drop down as well. So I gotta say, Trap's made some good, set himself up in some good ways to be able to get some damage done here and there. He's been able to get himself into good positions. He's been able to put himself into some better fights, right? I feel like if he wasn't able to take the fights he's taken, he'd be in some real trouble, because the fights he's taken have been just about good enough to keep him in it, despite being kind of out-microed. I wouldn't say out-microed, I guess. Outplayed a little bit when it comes to macro, I suppose. He's always been behind on workers this game, for example. So yeah, Trap's been doing wonderful things with the army positioning to set up some very good fights. So Stalker's back over to the left. The Hellions from TY down to the bottom. I didn't realize here, it doesn't even have ship upgrades, which is actually even huge for the Liberators. Typically in TvP, you want +2 for the Liberators for the switch up onto the damage bar on the Stalkers. So you see Hellions, Libs pushing forwards here. Just cleaning up some of those Stalkers. Actually giving chase with the Hellions. It's kind of amazing because that's never really a fight you expect to see the Terran player trying to take, but picks off a few Stalkers. It's just because at this stage, look at the bank. Hellions are so replaceable. Now, if you're killing off killing off Stalkers for Hellions, you're having a great time. And this is just the economy throughout the entire game really coming into play now. This fight might be a little bit tougher. There's a couple carriers to contend with. There is absolutely Storms available. And as you see, one of those High Templar targeted down. The Hellions forcing a couple of Storms already. Do you have an army up on the top looking to flank on in? Oh, another couple of Hellions making a dive, and nearly getting the High Templar there. We'll make another pick on this base. The Trap is again denied to 4 bases here. As the carriers are going to make their move forwards. A couple tanks taking some hits. Trap pretty much has to go for this in a moment. He can't wait too much longer, so here we go. As the Vikings are trying to decide where they want to be. I mean, they're going to be able to, I think, get rid of the carriers during this. The rest of TY's army is just absolutely disappearing. Though this was probably the best fight we've seen so far from Trap. This is going to be a final carrier down. So the 2 carriers of the game shot down and killed off here. I mean, it was just a beautiful flank in. But again, TY's been able to keep Trap off of this base. The longer he keeps him off this base, the more likely he is to rebuild from this. But not happening just yet, as we do have these couple of tanks setting up. Stalkers coming in, a couple of SCVs starting to go down. And probes picked off as he does have a couple of Widow Mines just in. Mineral lines are not being dealt with right away. This was Trap maybe getting a bit over eager though. There's so many tanks on this high ground. He lost a lot more units than I think he thought he would. TY still behind a little bit on army supply. Can't really get over how good that last fight was for Trap. He's now moving around the bottom to try and deny this base. No planetary fortress here. It's going to have to be a straight up unit-based defense to push this away. And that's frustrating because if this was a planetary, he'd probably just pull some SCVs and repair it. But that's now very frustrating because, especially in a moment in this game where you've got units here which are ready to push the front as well, it's tough. 7 SCVs go down, some tanks moving over, and they are starting to siege. Some Hellions moving into Hellbats on top of the Stalkers. Liberator is actually just sieging up as they go as well, and we'll pick up a couple of kills. And there's that +2 air weapon upgrades we talked about starting to come in now from TY. This is really turning into quite an excellent game of TvP, right? So you have Mortals and Archons starting to press forwards. A lot of Liberators coming in here. Nice split against the Storm. The Libs trying to siege up aggressively on top of the army. It kind of forces some of these units to kind of stop, turn, and fight if they want to make the pickoffs, which isn't actually altogether that great, as TY is still pressing on into this. Meanwhile, on the right-hand side, we've got a lot of Stalkers looking to maybe join in as well. Good dodge with those high tanks moving away from this. We're going to see the Stalkers blinking forwards. Hellbats getting a lot of damage done as well, but the Mauls make their move back forwards, so the tanks go down. TY and Trap are both hovering around now the 120 supply marker. They're both in an amazing position against each other where they're just keeping up with supply. I don't even know what to tell you guys. It's 5 bases each, and at 22 minutes in, we are so close between the 2 players. It is still anybody's game to take, and it looks as though Trap is going to take a moment to slow it down. He's going to back away here. He's getting better upgrades, by the way, so as this continues, Trap, if he hasn't been winning enough fights already, is now getting even more upgrades that should help him even more in these fights. I mean, so is TY. But the TY upgrade is like a ship upgrade, right? Versus, entire ground armies being better off upgraded for TY up until this point. That's a big difference. Do you see another base here trying to re-establish TY? Set the Liberators, of course, and don't feel like this is a fight that Trap will kind of want to take. He's going to blink in for the Liberators, though. That's a big mistake. The siege tank cover does block those Stalkers from really getting the Libs, so the Libs do survive. And obviously the Stalkers go down. That was not a good fight from Trap, and that might have been his one big mistake here. He's been so good at picking a lot of good fights when it comes to the larger armies maxed out and TY attacking. When TY's defensive, Trap actually has picked some really bad fights. So over here, for example, he's not been able to take a fight in this position. We haven't really been able to see a fight. When Trap came over here, there's tanks up on this high ground, right? Over here, Liberator set up. Trap, he shouldn't be committing to those fights, and yet he is. Maybe a bit overconfident, maybe misreading the scenario just a little bit. A few more Liberator sieges we're going to see attempting to push in towards this base. How many times have we seen this base of Trap denied? The probe is already pulled away. Trap's already like, yeah, I think you're going to get rid of it. So he knows that, again, when TY is set up, sieged up, there's not much he can do about it. He's not really had the time this time around on this rodeo to be able to actually set up a surround here, which has been so vital for him previously. Hellbat's now going to the top side base as well. We do see Zealot Stalker counterattack. They're picking off SCVs too. TY goes down to 28 workers. These Widow Mines need to get burrowed, and he will burrow them up. What can he kill? A couple of Zealots. Doesn't get the splash for much more. This orbital flying away, burning down. And a few Hellions and Cyclones coming in. This base will drop. This burst over here in the end was protected, and its Trap actually just long distance mining over on the right hand side to try and keep this going. Stalkers out through the bottom, trying to see what they can get up to. This Nexus finally falls. We're in a position where realistically Trap is still trailing and still hurting, and going into a low eco game, it's just these armies are a bit too strong from TY. TY had a lot of minerals banked up as well before he lost that last round of 20 workers or so. And now even a Hellion sneaking into the main base. Not sure he'll really do much, and I think TY gives up on it as well. He knows it's not even worth the micro, because there's not enough there to justify killing. Cyclone Hellion production resumes again. Oh, what a game. 25 minutes here on Eternal Empires. This Siege Tank is going to target down the High Templar. Widow Mines are going to blow up a couple of Zealots. Mortal's taking a big shot as well. More Widow Mines going off here. So you have our Stalker still pressing in. Liberators will siege up, turns this army around. So you see Trap once again push back up to the top side of the map. Oh, War Prism's going to get caught as well. Able to pick this off. Again, it's just every little thing seems to be going TY's way now. They do see these Hellions pressing forwards. These Stalkers in a lot of trouble. And that's going to be GG for Trap. Just too many fights lost in the latter stages. When it got too close on the economies to make mistakes, TY made less of them. And TY's able. In the bottom right hand side, our blue Protoss player is Trap. Taking on the red Terran in the top left hand side, TY. TY with the mech there to tie this series up once again. TY has never led this series. Down 0-1, tied it up. Down 1-2, tied it up. You do just have the supply depot at the front. And that wall set up and established. And the probe coming across from Trap. Get this early scout going and have a little bit of a look to see what's going to happen. Pylon going to come down in the top side here. As you see the barracks dropping down from TY as well. So again, that barracks started. And as we're going to be seeing our probe just setting up to drop down a gateway. So gateway will get going here, get this ready to roll. We do have a command center finishing up a couple of SCVs to continue along the way. Probe wandering around, seeing what's up. A quick little shout out. Thank you so much, Lord's Disciple, for the 3-month resub. Obviously, I'm not allowed my webcam on today, so if you'd like a decoration on the tree, Lord's Disciple, please just remind me that you resub during WESG. I'm not allowed my webcam on stream during WESG broadcasts, so. Thank you so much for the 3-month resub. I do appreciate it. I'll write you out a decoration at the very least. I'll put up on the tree for you. It's a little bit sad. It's a little bit frustrating not being able to put my webcam on. It's really stupid. But the rules are the rules. As you see, a proxied gateway here. So Trap really putting up the pressure here for this game. Gonna go into this right away with the couple of gates of pressure. So Reaper does find it though, so TY is not completely blind, so he does know what he's playing against. And you do see the Reaper hopping back to the high ground. He's going to pull SCVs down to the low ground. He wants to protect this bunker. If this bunker doesn't go up, he's in a lot more trouble, right? So it's worth losing an extra SCV or two and some mining time to make sure he's got the bunker to put his Reaper and other units into. Nice load up there as well, loading in the damaged SCVs. This really does already start to shut down a lot of the aggression here. The only thing you can do now is maybe Adepts behind this mineral line or so. You're going to see they kind of, they move around, so you can still move the Adepts around a little bit. But again, you're not going to get much kind of continued damage going on as you see Depot's raised. And these couple of SCVs are low, so the Adepts might shade if they feel like they can pick those off. We will actually try to get out, but the Adepts over there will not let it happen. So far, so good. Is just about going to get back into the bunker again. We've seen some good micro here on the bunker of TY to get units in, pick units out. And he's so far saved everything that's kind of low HP on this low ground. In fact, it's a very impressive defense. Only the first SCV that was trying to finish the bunker has gone down, but it's a fleet beacon from Trap. So he did proxy the Stargate, and he's looking to go into the Tempest Rush here. Now, I'm actually kind of surprised we don't see an Oracle, because the Oracle for Revelation can do so much in this scenario as well. And especially just in a position where he has a bit of time to help out, but I guess he's put a lot of money into Adepts, and he is also expanding, so Trap is trying to put on, some pressure, while also having the expansion up, so that it's overall should be a very good spot for him. Second Cyclone on the way from TY, and if you can get a good amount of Cyclones up, that should work well. You can see this pylon here. That should tell you already there's something a bit weird going on. While you're still trying to put a pylon towards the front of my base, Macfield Accelerator starts, and I think TY has a really good read on what's happening. Macfield Accelerator is the absolute go-to shut this down play, because Macfield lock onto those Tempests, they are going to melt, and I mean absolutely melt. Like, you're not even going to realize they exist. So I think TY's got a very good read on what's going on here. Maybe it's just because he's making a couple of Cyclones anyways, but this feels really good for him. He's going to deny this pylon again, so still no shield battery available. As the first Tempest will pop out, the Cyclones, they're just going to turn away for the moment. And again, now TY knows for sure what he's playing. Let's see if he changes much up. He'll add an extra gas. I don't think he really diverges from what he was already going for here, so I think he's kind of happy with what he's committing to. No missile turrets or anything by time, as the bunker will start to take some hits. Obviously, you want to try and keep those Cyclones out of the Tempest range. He's going to go for the lock on here. I mean, you may as well, right? No scan available, otherwise he might have been able to get a Tempest kill, actually. Already takes the shields down, though, and finally, shield batteries can start from Trap, but it's been so long trying to set these up. TY is up 13 workers. Army supply is equal. These Tempests are meant to be good, because these Tempests are meant to be able to stop you from ever really, dealing any damage as the Terran player. You're meant to just take damage and damage and damage. But again, with an answer in the form of the Cyclones already setting up here, I'm not quite convinced it's going to work out like that. I mean, Macfield also helps you clean out the shield batteries, so you can move in, lock onto a shield battery or two, move away, and you obviously can pick up the kills there, as long as you maintain vision. Let's see, as the Cyclones will move forwards there, they get a shot off on the Tempest. Just the one, as we're going to be having SCVs. Pull to try and repair this bunker. Cyclone's coming down the low ground. They're locked onto Zealots, which don't take bonus damage from the Cyclone upgrade, so that's not exactly ideal. And this is starting to get a little bit of momentum going here now from Trap. 3 Tempests up at the top side. Already first missile turret picked off, and a bit of back and forth between the two as they try and see what's going on. More shield batteries finishing up, plus 1 flyer attack on the way as well. These Marines on the counter attack, though. This is amazing. Oh, what a play by TY. Kills 5 probes right away. And that able to put the damage onto the Protoss player as well is so nice, because it really does change up what is usually meant to be the scenario here. And down to 18 probes. Trap's in a bit of trouble. Vikings going to put out some damage. Oh, he unpowers them. Oh my god, he just killed all the shield batteries by unpowering them. Gets rid of that one pylon. And now the Tempests are going to go down. What a disaster. What a play by TY. Again, just forcing the recall home. By forcing the recall home, let's just have a quick look at this, as we can nowadays go straight into a replay, or straight into rewinding the game. Let's just have a look at this and just see what happens. So you can see there's no other units here, so the Cyclones are free to just come in and get a lock onto the pylon. It's one pylon that empowers everything, and obviously at the same time this drop is being a frustration, and it forced so many units to recall. So that drop not only does